So my brother's name was Sean Clemons. Really gregarious, fun-loving guy who just loved to have fun, loved to laugh, loved to crack jokes, and died at the age of 18. When I think about the trajectory of his life, around the age of 12, I would say 12 or 13, I kind of saw him going in a different way, not really going to school as much as he should have, hanging out with some of the wrong kids, if you will, but really, really smart kid, really engaging kid, but not doing what he was supposed to do. This was around the time that, a little after, a couple of years after my mom and dad had split up, and really didn't know where my father was or where he ended up being, and not even really knowing why they weren't together. My dad, as I know now, was suffering from mental illness, but no one really, there was no diagnosis, no conversation about that. And I saw my brother kind of fading fast, if you will, in the midst of all that was going on in our lives, moving from here to here, living in deep poverty, not knowing, where your father is and why your father isn't. And then also, watching my mom struggle, I felt like there was a burden of responsibility for me as an older brother to always look out for him and always role model for him. And I didn't really know what to do when the role modeling wasn't working. And so I kind of watched this, but I was so preoccupied with my own survival that, all I could do at that time was really watch. And so by the time he was 18, he was killed. When I think about that day, it was June 18th, 1988. I was actually in Bridgeport most of that day. We lived in Norwalk, and I was at a girlfriend's house. And my sister at the time, who's a year older than me, was about 7 months pregnant and had called and wanted me to come pick her up. I left Bridgeport about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and got down to Norwalk and went to the projects in Norwalk called Court. And it was really hot that evening, really hot. A lot of people outside, if you can imagine. And I pulled up and I parked my car on the curb. I saw my sister. Then my brother came running to the car, and he was hanging out in the projects with a cousin of mine. And so I stopped and I talked to him for a while, and he seemed like he was good. He was with his girlfriend and my cousin and his girlfriend, and they were going to hang out. And so I got my sister and I told her that I'll be here for 10 minutes, and when you're ready, we can leave. And so I remember hearing a voice in out of my right, the corner of my eye. I saw a guy walking across the large driveway in the parking lot, and he was unwrapping something that was in his hand. It was a white, kind of like a white towel. And all of a sudden, I heard all of this gunfire. And I dropped to the ground and got under my car. And my first worry was for my sister, who was a ways from me and was 7 months pregnant. And what I didn't know at the time was there were like 3 or 4 people who were shooting guns. I didn't worry about my brother because he was next to me, and I figured he would be with me on the ground. And I turned to my left, and my brother was in a nearby parking lot laying in the ground. And I didn't know if he was shot or not because, it was still, everybody was down. He decided to run. So he turned and ran instead of just getting down. And so I crawled to him and turned him over. And I realized that he had blood in his mouth. And I realized he had been shot. I didn't know where he was shot. I knew that he was not responding to me. And so, I turn him back over on his stomach. And then my cousin came running out, and we picked him up and put him in the back of my car, and got him into the hospital. And I sat in the waiting room, and the doctor came out, and he asked me if we would want to donate his organs. Yeah. So, man, I didn't know how to answer that. And they told me that he was brain dead, and he had been shot in the back of his head, and the bullet had came out of his mouth. That's why he was bleeding through his mouth. Didn't know where my mother was. Definitely didn't know where my father was. And so, I had these decisions to make. And I told them, do whatever it is that you had to do, given his situation. And that was it. I think what happens here in these situations definitely happen in our family is once someone is killed this way, it just totally reinterprets the relationships you have with your family members. And so my relationship with my mom has never been the same. My relationship with my sister has never been the same. My sister's relationship with my mom has never been the same. And, my non-relationship with my father has even deepened and widened. We never really talked about it. Still, never really talked about it. And we still don't talk about it. I blamed, my mother. I blamed my father for the path that my brother went down. I blamed myself. The one prevailing feeling was just guilt. Guilt for surviving, for not, again, taking care of him in a way that I thought a big brother should. And this kind of lack of peace because of that incident. For maybe 4 years, I was just waiting to die. I was waiting for the same thing to happen to me because I felt like it could happen to me. I blame my brother as well. Your life's actions have consequences. And, you can either put yourself in position for success or put yourself in position for destruction. And, that's easy for me to say now. But I think there are larger issues at play here, especially in the urban environment. One very large issue being poverty and ways in which to navigate poverty, the issues around poverty as you unpack it. There's not a huge amount of concern to do well in school, right? Although you hear it a lot, to do well in school, but what exactly does that mean if I'm hungry and I don't know why we're struggling? I don't know why we don't have as much as the folks who I go to school with, and I don't know where my father is, and I don't know why he's not around. To do well in school in the midst of those things is very difficult. It's very difficult, while at the same time there's a prevalence of violence that is sometimes unanswered, and there's a blame in that, right? We blame it on gang activity. We blame it on young black boys. We blame it on a host of things without really dealing with the root of why people do what they do. I think there's such an absence of love and a longing for love that because of that absence and that longing, there are decisions that are made based on that. And I think society has profaned the idea of love in a way where we don't even talk about the absence of love. And if we can get at the heart of people, you'll see that there's a void there. There's a love ethic that is not being realized.